Hi, this is Andre, and thanks for checking out Synthosophy. Synthosophy is integrating the wisdom of history based on fact and truth into present culture. The roots being synthesis, history, and Sophie, as in philosophy. Sophie, the Greek root meaning wisdom, knowledge. Today we're going to be talking about chapter 25, Unneurealism on the left. Last week, we tore apart Trump and the right. Today, we're going to tear up the left. Let's start with Bill Clinton. He was responsible for the passing of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico in 1994. In 1992, in his presidential campaign, Ross Perot said NAFTA would make a giant sucking sound. Referring to the sound of U.S. manufacturing jobs heading south for Mexico. And that's exactly what happened. Followed by a similar agreement with the same outcome with Asian nations, including China. In 2023, domestic production met 67% of U.S. manufacturing demand, while foreign imports accounted for the remaining 33%. In 1989, the ratio was 85% domestic and 15% foreign. Since 1990, the United States has lost over 5 million manufacturing jobs. Thanks, Slick Willie. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008. I couldn't vote for him in his run for a second term in 2012. Obama struck me as not having the political moxie, gumption, the balls to take aggressive political action, which is by definition a necessity in politics, or else someone else does and you get steamrolled, which is what happened to Obama in his second term. Number one, Putin invaded Crimea in February 2014, and Obama did very little in response. A few tariffs, some minor verbal criticisms. 8 years later, Putin invaded Ukraine. Why not? There was little or no response to his invasion of Crimea. Thanks, no balls Obama. Number two, Merrick Garland, a judicial moderate, was nominated to the Supreme Court in March 2016 by President Barack Obama after the death of Justice Antonin Scalia in February. But the Senate, controlled by Republicans and Mitch McConnell, refused to hold hearings or a vote on Garland's nomination. This effectively blocked Garland's consideration for the Supreme Court, as his nomination expired at the end of the 114th Congress in January 2017, when Trump then took office. Obama didn't have the gumption to take legal action against McConnell's political maneuver, test it in the courts, and he lost a chance to place a justice on the Supreme Court. No balls Obama. On January 31st, 2017, President Trump announced the nomination of Neil M. Gorsuch, a very conservative judge, who was confirmed to the Supreme Court on April 7th, 2017. Number three, Ruth Bader Ginsburg served as a Supreme Court justice from 1993 until her death in 2020. She was nominated by President Clinton and considered a liberal justice. In July 2013, Obama had a private lunch with Justice Ginsburg. Treading cautiously, he did not directly bring up the subject of retirement to her. At 80, the Supreme Court's oldest member. He did, however, raise the looming 214 midterm elections and how Democrats might lose control of the Senate. Implicit in that conversation was the concern motivating his lunch invitation. possibility that if the Senate flipped, he would lose a chance to appoint a younger, liberal judge who could hold on to the seat for decades. But the effort didn't work. Justice Ginsburg left Obama with the clear impression that she would continue her work on the court. Obama had a year and a half before Republicans took the Senate in 2015 to coax her off the court. Lyndon Baines Johnson was known for doing such coaxing, a la the Johnson treatment. Using a combination of charm and pressure to get what he wanted, Johnson wasn't afraid to push people out of their comfort zones and challenge their resistance. He would use flattery to disarm his targets and make them more receptive to his ideas. Obama, on the other hand, never took action or spoke to Ginsburg again. No balls, Obama. Ginsburg died on September 18, 2020 at age 87. Trump's nominee to replace Ginsburg was Amy Coney Barrett, another very conservative justice. Of the 9 judges now on the Supreme Court, 6 are conservative, 3 are liberal. Had Obama had balls, now it would be 4 conservatives and 5 liberals. That's the consequence of having no moxie, no gumption, no balls. Thanks, Barack Obama. If President Biden had done as he originally said after taking office in 2021, that he would not be running for a second term, he may have gone down in history as one of the best presidents. But he did run for a second term and withdrew from the race on July 21st, 2024, 3.5 months before the election, and asked Kamala Harris, the VP, to take his place. He may now go down in history as one of the worst presidents. It's obvious in retrospect he was not up for the job. Recall his June 28th debate blunder when he stumbled for an answer, lost his train of thought, and stood there silent with no answer? How could his Democratic handlers and the Democratic Party think they could hide this from the public? Do they think we are that stupid? Apparently so. Here's the Democratic National Committee headquarters in D.C. Their audit of the 2024 presidential campaign will avoid the questions of whether President Joe Biden should have run for re-election in the first place, whether he should have exited the race earlier than he did, and whether former Vice President Kamala Harris was the right choice to replace him. Duh. That's the reason they lost. The public is not that stupid. Apparently, the Democratic Party thinks we are. The Democratic Party is out of touch with reality. They're unreal. And their arrogance begets their ignorance. But there is hope in a democracy, in regular people like you and me. Watch next week's video to see.